Information has to be analyzed to form knowledge. It's a series of things. It's like a sea. A lot of things are available with this world getting digital. So now business research consists of these systematically gathering of this data about people, companies, market, revenue, market sharing, growth potentials, and all those things, and then understand and analyze the need. The result of these data would give you, they are normally either in a summary report, PPTs, and those things where we, after analyzing and putting together as points, then we, based on that analysis, we see whether we, where do we reach as a conclusion after our entire point of business research. What's the need of business research? Again, it can help you get your market strategy, market efforts in better aligned manner. It is the starting point of your marketing strategy. Unless you know your market, you know your customer, you know your supplier, both the demand and the supply side, it doesn't make sense to just bounce off. So I say there is a difference. A technical person comes with a great expertise, a great idea. But the moment you move on to do something of your own, the moment you become an entrepreneur, from a technical person, you have to become a managerial person. And the moment you become a business person, you need to understand the market. You cannot say, no, this is not my domain. The moment you have a startup, it is your domain. You are there to make money. You are there to make business. You are there to answer up a burning query, the issue that's happening in the world. Right? So that's why that there is a need of business research. Now, how do we do business research? So there are basically two ways that we call primary research and secondary research. What are these? What are these primary research and what are these secondary research? Primary research is generally anything that we talk about where we do directly talk to the audience, customer, or the clients. That's primary point of contact. Secondary research, on the other hand, is where we use the data insights based from the Google search, journal search, databases, and those things. That's the prime difference. We will get into the details as well. So now, when should we do primary research? So primary research is more when we need to talk to the audience, to get a survey, to get the insights. But what are the, we need to see whether we can do primary more easily or secondary more easily. What are the advantage and disadvantage? So primary research, if we start doing, if we start calling up people to get insights, if we speak to them, get a survey, questionnaire, these are very lengthy processes. These take a lot of time. They are expensive, right? Because you need to schedule your interviews with experts. You need to then, sampling is very important. I cannot go and talk to 10 people and say that I have generated the entire world's idea onto it. So the sampling becomes very important in a survey. You would have listened to a lot of these pre-poll survey and those things. There also, please mute all your mics. Yeah, better. So when we do these pre-poll surveys and exit poll surveys, how do we do that? There also we do the sampling. So sampling becomes very critical in primary market research, and it is time consuming and it is expensive. So there are times when you need primary research, but there are times when you want a more speedy analysis. There are times when you need more focused analysis and less expensive one. That's where we do secondary research. Primary research are different kinds. There are, we do it surveys, we do paper based, we do computer aided, we do telephonic, we do localized center based, and then these are I have that on the slide. If you can see, they are termed like CAVI, that's computer aided web interview, CATI, computer aided. All these are different terminologies that are very widely used in primary research. Then again, these are also depending upon what exactly is your need. There are two types of questions or survey or data that's done in primary research: qualitative and quantitative. Like the name suggests, qualitative is when you ask open-ended, elaborate questions, right, to understand in-depth market. On the other hand, quantitative research is when you have, numeric answer, objective kind of question. That's where you quantify things. So two kinds, qualitative and quantitative primary research. It is comparatively easier to do a quantitative research because you can interpret and model it, a lot of SAS based and export and those kind of things to do a statistical modeling to analyze the data. But when there is a quantitative market research, when there are huge data insights in a long text and conversation, it becomes a little more tedious process to analyze that data if it is a lot of bulky data. Now let's move to the second aspect of it, that's called secondary market research. Secondary market research is where we start building our information, we start building our research based on the data that is available on secondary resources. And what are secondary resources? These could be your journals, magazine, web portals, databases, and all those things. Like, this is comparatively time and cost effective. You get a ample, heterogeneous sample of data, and the statistical modeling or analysis of secondary research becomes much easier. And so this is a lot more quicker and easy to be done. So after understanding your need about which target market segment are you working on, you need to choose which of these two methods, primary research or secondary research, is what you need. Like we talked about, what are the sources of secondary research? They could be internal data, where we take it from the data. There are a lot of databases which provide company specific data, revenue specific, market size, capital IQ. But these are, most of these databases are paid sources. The other one is the free source that we use from Google and our websites. That's, you need to be very careful in from where you pick the data. Like I said, there is a lot of data, but all those are not information or knowledge. You have to be very specific from where are you sourcing your data. So do check the correct sources. Pick your data from the reliable sources, very important. Authentic, reliable sources. Wherever possible, go with the government data, whichever country, whichever industry. Go from companies, financial reports, 10K filing, those kind of places. That's where the authentic data comes. Don't go for misleading news wires, because there is no authenticity of that data, and all your assumption and analysis would be based on wrong data. So that would be very detrimental to your analysis. There comes a time, what happens is, even when you do your secondary data, there are gaps in the model that you're building. You have gathered your secondary data, you have built your model, but there is something in the market segment, something in the competitors, something in the supply, something is missing, that practical sense is missing. So the best model that I suggest everyone, based on my 15 years of experience as a management consultant, is do a secondary research that's quick, that is less expensive, but fill in the gaps by primary research. Right? So you build the model, you do your secondary research, do the competitor insight, market monitoring, industry trends, strategic analysis, but fill that model with the inputs from talking to experts. There is nothing that can take away the experience. There is nothing that can, be better than hearing it from the experts. So build a model based on a combination of secondary and primary research. I'm giving you all practical suggestions, right? Because that is where our startups need. Startups, mostly we have, a budget constraints. We lack a lot of things. But that's where our journey, our strength is, that we need to make it work. So this model that I'm talking about, build it from the secondary research, fill the gaps with primary research, would work best for startups, right? Now let's move to what is idea validation and why do we need, and then we would come up how to do this market research for the startups. So you all have got an idea with yourself, right? That's where you are a startup, that's where you're entrepreneur. So the moment you have an idea and you want to get into business, the primary three questions that you need to answer are why, how, and when. Is this idea important? Is it handling, what is the problem area that it is handling, right? There has to be a problem area that your startup, that your idea, that your concept, that your service is adhering to, that it is the answer to something. So that would take care of your why. So that for the idea validation, to do that, we need to first understand, is it an important problem? So that would give you the answer to the why. Is it, there is a important problem? Now then we get into the how. How do we understand the problem? If we have a personal relationship, understanding, insights, or have gone through something, we understand the small nuances of that problem. We can relate to it. We can be practical about it, right? I heard a lot of guys saying that, in my journey, I faced this, I was sick, I faced this challenge, I had this technical issue, and then I solved this problem. That is the best way, because you know what exactly are you targeting. So you are built inside to that problem, right? So that takes care of. There could be an option where you are not personally involved in that problem, but then somebody you know very closely, that person can give you those intrinsic details about those things. So that would solve your how of the idea. Now, the frequency, or when. Say, for example, if it is just once in a decade kind of a problem, would you invest in that idea? Right? It's very important to see the scalability of our idea. It's very important to see the market size of our idea. It's very important to see whether an investor is ready to invest in that idea. So then we need to look into the when or the frequency of that problem. Is this something you like doing? Was there something that you were passionate about doing on a daily basis and you faced a problem? Was there something that you wanted to do on regular time? And say, why are these webinars very hit these days, right? Because we wanted to interact, we wanted to do it very frequently. Earlier we seldom used to use Zoom calls because we used to meet each other, but now the frequency, since we are all indoors, it has increased so much that we want to connect to each other, and that's why we are using. So frequency matters, and that's where a lot of these players in the webinars and those players are making money now, because the frequency, the use of these digital technology has taken up a boom. So for your idea, you have a brilliant idea, answer these three questions: why, how, when. Is the problem important? Do we have the understanding of the problem? And how, what is the frequency of uses of that problem area, right? So these three important questions to get into the idea validation side of things. So now when we have those basics of these three aspects of idea validation, we would get into validating that idea, right? We knew about our idea, we authenticated it from ourselves. Now let's validate that idea. How? You need to be first proactive. Proactive means what? You need to be ready to talk to a lot of people, because everyone would share something for you. You may not incorporate it, but you will get a point of view. Talk about your ideas, be proactive. Analyze existing products. What would happen is, whatever is there in the market, they must be handling some aspect of the problem that is there. So analyze them, how are they solving, and how would you be different to them? That is where your USP would come into. Also analyze what are the products that they failed in that segment. That would give a very nice validating point for your idea of success and failure. Don't just analyze the existing players in the market, also understand in your market segment how many of them failed and why. That's equally important to get your idea validated. Next comes, consider your skill set. Even if there is a problem I see, Do I have a skill set? Do I have a team? Do I have an expertise? Do I have a supply chain to answer that? So consider your skill set, whether you should be able to do that idea, implement that idea or not. That's another very important point for validating your idea. And collect your ideas, right? Most of the time, the best of ideas come when you're not forced to think about it. It's serendipity, right? Even the eureka moment came when uh, Newton was having a bath, right? So Archimedes was discovered his principles when he was not being forced to do it. So don't force your ideas. It's not that it would you are made to think. So collect your ideas. You're at the back of the mind. You're processing them. So few important things that we talked about to validate your ideas. First, be proactive. Talk to experts. Second, analyze existing products, both successful and failed in the target segment. Consider your skill set. And fourth, collect the ideas. So these four parameters are very important and vital when you validate your idea, right? Now we have the idea, we have validated the idea. Now let's get into some of the business research tools to understand the market segment. So when we are getting into a market as a startup, it's not a virgin territory. There must be some players already existing in there, right? So we need to understand how to do that. The competitor analysis, right? Competitor analysis can be done by many ways. There are paid databases, Capital IQ, Bloomberg, and those things. Some of you may have access to them, some of you may not have access to them. Again, for a startup, just to buy a subscription to get our competitors in that segment doesn't fit most of the pockets. So now what we can do instead of those paid database services, we can do a competitor analysis based on the market reports, based on the industry trends, based on Google searches, keyword searches that we call. And when we talk about these keyword searches, we need to understand how to search. We will talk about the Boolean logic also, that how to do this secondary research on Google. Also, ask your customers. They would be providing you a lot of ideas about your competitors. Look into social media. These days, it has become so easy with the digital technology. Everyone is there on social and digital media. Look there. Then read on these blogs and community, because there may be some player who are already doing and may not be on others. Somebody must have heard about it, right? So also keep yourself updated about the industry and the trend. Very important. Get those news alerts marked for your emails. Have those keyword search saved in Google and get alerts for them on a daily, weekly, or a monthly basis. We have an option that on Google. So get those alerts set for yourself. You would be updated with the industry and the market trend, right? So that's one of the way that we can start building our knowledge about a market segment or the competitors. Why do we need to know the competitors? Equally important. So in order to understand the market size, market segment, what is our growth potential? We are starting a startup to to do business. Why do we do business? To make money, to be profitable, right? Let's be honest. That's the basic mantra of doing a business. You want to answer a problem that exists in the market, fair enough, but you also want to be profitable. Otherwise, it does not make sense to do business. So you need to be profitable, you need to see the growth potential, right? To see the growth potential in your target market, you need to understand what are your competitors and how have they been doing in the segments. So to check the growth potential, the few takes that I would quickly tell you is, you can do it by knowing your audience, right? Create content that your target audience wants and needs. That's how you would build the connect. How they want to, the target audience will find the content. You have to create that buzzword. right? Your audience should also be able to search your content. Use the content to capture and nurture those leads. Once you have created the buzzword in social media and everywhere, physical events, LinkedIn, everywhere, now value those leads, convert them. That's how you would get into growth segment, right? This is more for the tech industry, not very relevant here. Now, another thing that we talked about apart from the paid databases, there are unpaid or free subscription for things where we can track our competitors. Like I said, Capital IQ or Bloomberg or Factiva or those things are the paid databases and may not fit everyone's pocket. Now, there are some tools that we can use to track our competitors and growth potentials. Technology has been so nice. We can use any of these, that I have named, SEMrush, SpyFu, Owler, SimilarWeb, Alexa, Crunchbase. So what are these? These are tools which use your SEO or the search engine optimization technique or the keyword search, and then they have an insight or the analytical segment where they would give you your, based on the keyword search and the traffic that gets into it, you would get your competitors. Alexa does that. Owler is a very excellent example where you can get your competitor. They're based on their revenue, target size, whether there are small players, mid size, large size, who are who are the employees there, so that you can also know about the team content there. So Owler works in that manner. SEMrush is amazing. It would give you a very nice insights about your competitors. Spy for You is again a tool which you can use to do for both your organic competitor as well as paid competitors. And trust me, every one of you should be using Crunchbase. Crunchbase is something which has all the details of the companies, the competitors, the investors, the news, very important for the startup. So do use these technology platforms, do use these, what's available in the market. And most of all these that I'm talking about, SEMrush, Spy for You, Owler, Crunchbase, these are free. So use them to track your competitors. Now, I talked earlier also that we would also be talking about how to use Google efficiently, because there would be a lot of data when that pops up when you start searching something. First that we talked about was use the authentic sources. That's very important. From where are we picking the data? But still there would be a lot of things that would come up, and how do you sort that? So use these smart things in Google. If you are looking for PDF, your reports, journals, articles, simply put with the keywords, put PDF. You would only get PDF, right? Use the Boolean search logic, the Boolean logic where the operators are or, and, those kind of work. Say, for example, if I want to use, say, my company, Metaconnect Consulting, if I want to know something just about Metaconnect Consulting, anything that starts with the inverted comma, Metaconnect would give me results of those from where Metaconnect was the starting word. Or if I want Metaconnect Consulting together, I would put both the words together in within inverted commas, because there are a lot of permutation combination that's possible, similar names. You can put, if you want both the words in your search, Metaconnect and Consulting, put Metaconnect plus Consulting, right? So these are the learn the Boolean operators. There are these Boolean logic, Boolean operators that works wonderfully while doing these Google search. So use file type, use these operators, and you would arrive at much better search results that you would get. So it's very important to get the correct search. First, authentic data and the correct methodology to research your things. Now moving ahead, now we also know how to research, how to do this secondary research. Now it's important, what exactly is to research? As a startup, what do we need? two things for your idea that you have validated now. You need to do the research on both things, industry and the market. Trust me, these two things are different. When we talk about an industry in general, we need to see the trends of the industry, whether it is a growing industry, whether it is a shrinking industry, industry as a whole, how it is doing. We need to do that. And then we talk about the market. Who is our potential market? How is that market doing? Say, for example, industry could be FMCG, consumer, uh, uh, aeronauticals, anything. And the market would be, say, for example, it could be Indian market, Middle East market. There is a difference in industry and market, and we need to do the market research for both. We need to understand the trends for whether the market is growing, whether the industry is growing or shrinking. So do that analysis for both of these. Also, we need to search for the players in the market, whether it is a saturated market or whether there are you know people who have joined hands in the market. How is that, whether it is there is a very strong entry barrier in the market. So now we need to see how do we do that, what are the players and how do we do that. I would give you few uh, quick management tools. The top management consultants use them very frequently, and most of you may have heard these names, that SWOT analysis, PESTEL, and the Porter forces. So we would talk briefly about all these. Use these guys. They are very helpful tools. It would structure your life. It would structure your business idea. It would be very helpful. Now, when we talk about the first framework that I want to talk about here for the business research that you're doing is SWOT analysis. What is a SWOT analysis? SWOT analysis is one of the management framework that we use to ascertain anything, any industry, any market, any idea. SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, right? That is the SWOT. So what are, say for example, for your startup, do a SWOT for your startup. It would help you see where you are and where you would reach. What are your shortcomings? So now do a strength for your startup. What are your strengths? What is your USP? How are you different than the other players in the market? Write it down. Writing is very important because that's the first step in getting things structured. So think about your strength, think about your positioning, write your strength. Weakness, no idea, no business, no individual is without weakness. Mention your weaknesses, very important. This is the segment that we need to convert and work upon. Until and unless we know our business, there could be, for some it could be the supply chain management, for some it could be the team management, for some there would be technology difficulties, for some it would be operational difficulties. So until and unless we identify, for some it could be marketing challenges. So until and unless we identify our weakness, we would not be able to sail through. We should never say we are perfect. There is always scope to improve. So assess your weaknesses, write it down, right? The third important part here is opportunities. So howsoever good your idea is, until unless there is an opportunity, until unless there is a market need, it would not do well. So look at what all could be the potential opportunities, where all you can align, how you can market, whether, from B2B, you need to go to B2C, or you need to go digital, or you need to go into e-commerce, or you need to build into a one-on-one connect. What are the possible opportunities for you? Write it down, right? So that's very important. Again, the last but not to be ignored one is threats. Look and identify your threats. Threats could be anything. Right now the threat a lot of us faced, say the travel industry is in threat. Nobody knew that Corona would just wipe out that travel part, right? So most of the cases, threats are into the regulatory side, the legal side, that we can foresee. Corona was one of the pandemic that none could foresee, but there are threats that we can foresee. The threats that we can foresee could be competitors, trademark issues, regulatory issues, subject to some of the international funding. So there could be anything that could be the threat. You need to identify your own threat for your startup. Do a SWOT analysis. I am a very, big supporter of SWOT. Uh, I do this personally even for my own self, and it helps me improve as a person. So do a SWOT for your startup. It would help you align where you are. So that's the first framework that I wanted to talk about. The second framework that I want to talk about is one of the a very famous framework of management consulting, and it is called Michael Porter's 5 Forces framework. Porter Forces gives you a good analysis and understanding of the industry segment. Earlier we talked about what gave us an understanding of the market segment, right? Now we are talking about the industry segment. How we talked about, we need to take into account of both the industry and the market, right? How the industry is doing and how the market is doing. So Porter would give you a good understanding of how your industry is doing. So let's see, what are the 5 forces of Porter framework? The first one is the bargaining power of buyers. So, you all would agree that buyers are very important. Say, for example, I price something at a cost which my potential buyers cannot buy. My product would fail. So we need to understand the buying power or the bargaining power of buyers. At what cost they would buy, whether do they have options available, why would they be willing to buy our product only. So a buyer has a lot of influence on our product, startup, market, services, whatever you call it. I am taking a slight digress here. I'm just giving you an example of what I strongly believe. There's always 2 things that happens: what you do to the market and what the market does to you. Right? These are disruptive things. You would launch your product or a startup with an idea, right? That you would solve a problem. That's your idea. So that's where we are getting into it, what we are doing to the market. But we should also be open to understand what the market would do to our product. Based on the feedback, based on the reaction, based on the users, we may have to tweak our ideas. We may have to tweak the product. We may have to tweak the services. Be open to that. You are here to do a good business. You are here to make your startup successful. So don't keep your mind closed that, no, this is what I'm doing. In case there is a feedback that's coming from the market to fine tune your idea, do that. So remember, what you do to the market is important, but with what the market does to you should also be incorporated. Right? Now coming back to the Porter forces, we talked about the bargaining power of buyers. The next is the bargaining power of suppliers. Say, for example, you are in a processing, manufacturing, or food industry or something, where you are making something, garment industry, food industry, supply industry, construction industry, anything. What's happening? You are assembling it or manufacturing it because you're getting the inputs or the ingredients from your suppliers. So you are dependent upon your suppliers as well. What if they stop giving you, right? So the industry moves by the dominance of suppliers as well. Don't ignore them. Make good connects or relationship with your suppliers as well, because they are the ones who are helping you grow. They are the ones who are helping you manufacture. So they do have a lot of bargaining power. They can manipulate the rates, because if they don't give you, you would not be able to manufacture. So always remember in mind, the supplier also has a bargaining power, right? The third point that's considered in this Porter forces, threat of new entry. Very important. We need to keep an eye open to what's happening in the industry and whether new players are entering or not. One of the very fine examples I'll give you, what happened with Nokia. Nokia were the market leaders in mobiles, but they did not keep an eye open that the world is changing from a device mobile, just a device mobile, to a smartphone, where a computer can be clubbed with a mobile, right? And they could not see the smartphones coming. That is the threat of new entrants coming in that segment. and they lost out their market share. They were the leading players in the market and they were wiped off. So keep an eye open of the threat of the new entrants that come in the market, right? Fourth important one is threat of substitute. Threat of substitute, I would say, is it's really very vital. There are times when the need changes, right? And that's where I was saying, look an eye open to the feedback you're receiving from the market, what the market does to you. If you don't keep improving, if you don't keep yourself in a manner that's relevant to the market, there would be a substitute that comes in and takes away your position, right? Say, for example, this Zoom meeting, Zoom has taken over. It's a substitute to physical workshops, right? So there would be substitute that would come. Somebody would think of ways to disrupt the market. So there is always disruptions that's coming into the industry. So threat of substitutes is also important. Keep an eye there. And the fifth force that is also very important and is central to all these four forces, that is the bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers, threat of new entrants, and threat of substitute. So all these lies on the periphery of a very important concept that we call it as industry rivalry. You would have heard a lot of big players, how they lobby, how they the connects influence, how the industry gets segmented, or the rivalry works. Say, for example, I have a problem with say X company, I would not work with them. So if I stop supplying them, or say if, and that could be seen in both the manner. If there is an industry rivalry between two players, a third player can benefit. Or if there is an industry collaboration happening, the two merging together, the other players might lose the market share. So industry rivalry is also one of the very important things to keep yourself updated and informed about. Keep an eye open about all these things that's happening in the industry. And that's where I said, read about yourself, set alerts that whatever is happening in the industry, you're aware about. Knowledge is very important, right? So this was the second important management framework that I wanted to tell you guys about, which is Porter's 5 forces analysis. Do this for the industry you are in. The third framework that I want to talk about is the pestle analysis. We talked about SWOT, we talk about Porter. Now let's get into pestle analysis. Pestle is a little more elaborate one, and this is much more influential or important when we start getting from one territory to another territory, because it includes a lot other socio-economic factors into its analysis. So what all do we do in a pestle framework analysis? We would look into how the political situation of that geography is, right? When we are getting into a new territory, when we are expanding business, when we are doing work. So that's important. Most of you may have heard about this important Tata Nano plant. It was moved from West Bengal to Gujarat. Why? Because of the political unrest. So for a business to thrive or a business to die, you need to see how are the political situation there. You need to see whether there is terrorism or not, whether there is suitable environment or not. So the geopolitical thing is very important to ascertain when you choose to get into a territory. Economic situation. The next in the pestle is the economic. You need to understand whether the new market, new territory, geography that you're getting into has the stable economy or not. Say, for example, I have something to launch in a good to have or a luxury line or a IT segment, and I'm getting into a target population where people don't even have food to eat. Would they even look into my product? No. So you need to ascertain the economic situation of the territory as well. That's the second analysis we do in the pestle. The third is the social. Like I talked about, what are the, whether there is, how is the social setup there, whether we have peace there, how's the climate there, how's the government there, how's the people, whether it is a heterogeneous mix of population or a homogeneous mix of population, whether it is uh, a lot of educated people there or most of them are uneducated people. These kind of social setup or the heterogeneity of the demography would also impact your product. So look into the social aspect of the territory as well. The fourth one in pestle is the technological. So the technological advantage, you have to see, like I said, whether you cannot go and launch a IT app in a place, remote place where they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have digital technology, they don't have 4G connections and things like that. So you have to assess whether they have the technological framework ready or not. The next one is the environmental factor. You need to see whether your product can sustain in that environmental factor or not. Whether it is a very hot geography, if say for example you are into a vaccine manufacturing thing, which thrive only at a temperate climate. You need to see whether that geography can take care of it or not, or what are the other things that you need to ascertain to keep your product having a better shelf life. So you have to look into the environment, whether it is a humid place, whether it is a dry place, whether it is high altitude, whether it is near the sea level, whether it is hilly, where it is what kind of the environmental aspect that geography has. And the last in the pestle is the legal analysis, whether there are any legal challenges in that segment, territory, that concept, that idea, are you trademark protected, IPR done, those kind of things. Get yourself safe from all these parameters. These are all the risk factors where when we just work upon our product and the market, we forget these external factors which could be a threat for our businesses. So ascertain these 5 or 6 of them very clearly when you do a pestle. Political environment, economic environment, social environment, technological environment, environment as such, and the legal environment. All these 6 points encompasses your pestle analysis. So do a good soul searching when you have your idea, when you have validated your idea. Do these pestle for the industry you are getting into, right? So now these were the 3 framework that I wanted you guys to know: SWOT, Porter, and pestle. Now the next, when we know what are the frameworks, how to do it, now let's get into the market sizing. What is a market size and how to ascertain that, and why is it important? So market size is the target population or the potential that where you can sell your product or the services. It is very important to ascertain so that you would know what could be your growth trajectory, what could be the growth potential. Say for example, even when we cook, we know how many people are coming for the party or how many people are there at home. We need to cook it for 4 people or 5 people. So that demand supply ratio is there. And we also know that going forward, how that market would do. As a business consultant, and when I used to lead huge teams at my earlier organizations, one of the favorite questions that I asked while hiring people was to do a case study on market sizing. Because as a business consultant, it's very important to get into a framework where you know how to do a market size. And I'm giving you a personal example. One of the favorite questions I used to pop up was that on a Wednesday morning, 11 a.m., how many people would be buying white shirt in a nearby mall? That was my standard question. You would say it's a very vague statement, right? But no, it is a business problem, and we can get to a number, exact precise number, how many of people would must be buying white shirts in my nearby mall now. So how do we do that market sizing? So we would start fragmenting the data from much ahead. We would do what is the total population of that city, what are the different segments of that population, how many males, how many females, what would be the people who would wear a white shirt, how many of them would be going to offices on Wednesday, how many stores are there in that mall, how many of them have that buying power, how many shirts do you know. So all these segments that we do, and then we get into the exact number. So that would be the market size for the white shirts, right? So similarly, for all your product and services, you need to get to a number, a size of, you have to quantify what is your market size, and then start building that slowly, how you would approach and get your, market share into it. So some of the things that you need to do is gather data, fragment it, analyze it, to get onto your target user or the potential market size, right? So your sales profit, anything depends upon the market size. So unless we know that, even if it's a brilliant idea, I have built and invested a lot of money, time, energy to it, whether they are biased to it or not, whether there is a need of it or not, you need to ascertain that demand supply equation, right? So do that market sizing. And how do you do it? Do the business research, because each one of you have a different startup. So I cannot take example of any one industry, but all I'm giving you is the tools how to do that. So do the business research, get your data, fragment it into the different segments, and how that would get into it, and analyze it to get to a number, what would be your the market size of your product or the services. Get to that. It's very important. Uh, Two aspects that I would talk about here is when we do the market sizing, one is the demand side approach and other is the supply side approach. Demand side approach is one when we which we do most of the time to ascertain the market size. That's where the people are into it. How many people would buy my product? What is the customer segmentation? What are the quantum of consumption for each segment? Say, for example, how many of, if it is a burger market, how many of us would eat burgers, or whether one person would eat one burger or 10 burger? The quantum of consumption is important. And what is the frequency of purchase? So how many times a week or a month you would buy a burger? So all these segments would help you understand the demand side of the approach. But there are times when the consumer is very highly fragmented. We cannot target. Remember, we talked about the sampling. So sampling is very important. So, but there are times when the consumer data is very fragmented. We cannot target a specific pool of it. And that's where we get into the market sizing based on the supply side approach. We look into the, the volumes or the sales that is being provided by our competitors. We would look into how the competitors have sustained in the previous years, what has been their growth trend, what is the CAGR for that industry. That is the supply side of the approach to a certain market size. So taking cue from the existing players, taking cue from the industry data. So that's from the supply side, we can ascertain the market size. But whether it is from the demand side approach or the supply side approach, get to the market sizing of the things. Again, there's two ways into this market size approach, top down and bottom down. Top down normally happens when, say, for example, somebody is entering a new territory. Somebody, say, for example, a foreign player is getting into a target segment. It's a global market. Then they are coming to India, and then they are getting into, say, Delhi or a competitive specific. So they are coming down to something, right? So that's where we use the top-down approach. On the other side, the bottom-up approach is where when we are getting into expanding our market. We started from a very small segment. We gave it to, say, for example, we launched a product in a specific market. Then we increased grew our market potential. Then we took it further ahead. We took it to many cities. So that's where we do the bottom-up approach. Then again, these are the two, depending upon how you're navigating your product or the services, you can do the top-down approach or the bottom-up approach for the market sizing. Right? So this is the the entire universe. This gives you what is the total available market, what is the served market, what is your target market, and what is the niche market. So again, that's important to validate for your market sizing. Right. So these were the few of the things that we talked about the market sizing. You can say get a lot of templates also available. If you do the business research correctly, you would get some templates also based on your niche area of the startups that you are doing, and they would help you get the methods about your market sizing. Right? So they would help you get into what all should be the fragments that you should consider in your specific idea to get to the market size. And once you have that market size done, based on that market sizing, you can do your growth projection. Growth projection, remember guys, is very important for the startups. Always do your market projection for 1, 2, and 5 years when you're doing. So because the first year, your journey would be really different. You are just starting off. The second year is when you're trying to stabilize things. It would be different. And the next milestone would be 5 years when you have stabilized and you are scaling up. So do have the market size and the growth potential done for yourself for 1, 2, and 5 years. Right. So, after walking you through some of the tools, techniques, and ideology and frameworks that we have been using for the management consultants have been using. So that is where I would close the PPT now, exactly in 1 hour. Wow. So exactly in 1 hour, we have covered the PPT. And now I would open the forum for all your questions and queries. So let me know if you have any questions and queries, and I would be happy to answer that.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing such useful techniques and frameworks with all of us. I mean, personally, it was so much engaging and informative. Even I could learn so many things. I'm sure participants would have gotten more clarity in this. So we have some interesting questions from participants. So the first question is, Shrishta is asking, with respect to skill set, sometimes startups do well when people from one field are innovating in another. So she would like to, they're developing a startup. She would like to take your thoughts on it. What do you think that why startups do well when they move from one field to another?
Sorry, I missed the name. Rubika, who has that question?
Shrestha,
sorry. So Shrestha, a very important factor that you have mentioned, why serial entrepreneurs are more successful than the amateur ones, right? So you have learned the tricks. What happens is, since you have done one successful startup, what happens is you have learned that small nuances that's very important to run or build a firm or a company or an idea or concept. So once you have mastered that skill, you can do that to any of the skill. It is irrespective of the industry. You know how to handle people, you know how to handle compliance, you know how to market your product. So if you know how to market Apple, you can market mango as well, right? So that is where the success comes from serial entrepreneurs. But always remember, even if a serial entrepreneur can do it, he also was, at some point, he also was the first time entrepreneur. So yes, the zeal and energy should be there.
Great. So by team Vaigyanik, he's asking that, can you suggest an authentic government database for carrying out market research and knowing market statistics of any kind of product?
Right. So there are a lot of government related websites. Government of India, it has been very transparent. Global data are also available, but Government of India, get onto the ministry websites, get onto all these GOVIs, the website which ends with gov.in. Get onto this. Each of the ministry, whichever segment you're working onto it, they would give you those data. The government is working seamlessly to provide as transparent industry data as possible. Look for the government websites. Look for the industry specific websites. All these ministries have their databases.
Great. So ma'am, Lakshya here is asking that while performing the market size survey.
Hmm.
So usually you get the feedback data are false. How do you predict and how do you analyze them and correct them?
What that's where I was saying, when you base your information, when you base your model, it's very important to pick the assumptions correct, because if you take the wrong data, if they are not from the authentic sources, all your modeling would, all your effort would go in vain, all your hard work would go into vain. So pick the data from the authentic sources, and all those data, like I said, the another point is use correct operators, pick from the right databases, and use the correct Google operators to ascertain that what you're getting into. There could be misleading data. Don't get wiped out of it, because if you don't have the correct data as a starting point, all your hard work would go in vain.
Yeah, I guess it's another Lakshya's question. So can you, ma'am, please share the deeper parameters we should focus while performing threat analysis, and also the repeat purchase of a product or a service by our customers?
Right. So we talked about SWOT in detail, Lakshya. SWOT, like we said about, it talks about your strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Right. So this is where you are understanding your products. What are the strengths, your USPs, unique selling proposition that we talk about. How are you different from the other players in the market? There are players in the market. There would be competition, and competition is required. If there is no competition, we would not improve. So competitors would be there, but how are we different from it, right? So what is your USP? So work on your strength area. That's the first part of SWOT. The second that we talked about were the weaknesses, are not so great or not so strong points of us. And this weakness is where, which we have to convert to our strength area. If, say for example, if I know that my IT platform is not very nice, if I know my social media presence is not nice, my supply chain is not good, my manufacturing has a problem, my team handling is difficult, whatever is my weakness, unless I know, I would not work onto it. If I saw cash flow is an issue, I would have to address that at some point. So again, look into the weakness. That's the second point, because that's where we need to put a lot of work to convert it into our strength to sustain the business. The third we talk about were the opportunities, right? The opportunities are where we are keeping an eye open, how more we can grow. Like you talked about the repeat purchases, right? So the repeat customers or the repeat purchases are a validation that your service, your product was good. Otherwise, they would not have come. That is the biggest, feedback anyone can give you. So keep an eye open for the opportunities. Maybe synergize with somebody, maybe shake hands with somebody, maybe find some strategic partners. Keep an eye open for the opportunity. Say, for example, a lot of players are now getting onto online platform for education. So this is the opportunity. They have seen that, remote working has an opportunity to get onto the technology. So keep an eye open. There have people who have come up with health drinks, because we are all now concerned about our immune system, right? So this was the opportunity, right? So get on to keep an eye open for the opportunity. And the fourth thing that we talked about was the threat. So threat is again industry specific, that we should understand. There could be threats from regulation. There could be threats from say for when we infringe some trademarks, some IPR, some copyright issues. So they could, just take away all what you have built. So regulation, legal, those kind of things, people management, anything could be the threat. You should keep an eye open. So these were the four parameters of SWOT: strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, right?
Yes. One more question here is, usually he's asking that SWOT analysis is performed by management consultants. Yes. They have more deeper insights when compared to the research done by the founders.
Yes.
So
yes.
How does Metaconnect Consulting makes the difference?
Good one. Since as management consultant, you're right, we have been taught and we have been thinking in that direction to do this. I told you that, you as a technical person, you have an idea, but the moment you start thinking about doing consulting or doing any business, you have to think from the business perspective. We at Metaconnect, if you ask, we at Metaconnect, as management consultant, we do all these kind of strategy advisory to the startups, to the small, medium, and large sized companies. We help them do all this strategic analysis, business research, competitor profiling. These are the segments or the products that we do: competitor profiling, market research. We do these for the startups.
Yeah, we have many questions, and again with the
Yes,
SWOT
yes.
analysis, I guess they have understood this concept more clearly.
I love
As
it that people imbibed it. It's a wonderful concept.
yes, I personally feel so. So here the question Jagdish Mishra is asking. So
Yeah.
he is saying that, ma'am, while exercising the SWOT analysis, there must be some factors. So how can he detect the opportunities factor, especially for his business, and what should be the perspective in that regards?
Jagdish, like you said, that the opportunity that you're looking at would depend on your idea or the industry you are into. I'll take an example. Say, for example, somebody is into. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody who is developing an animal vaccine. So, what are the opportunities for that person? So, I would give you an example that, say, if somebody is getting into a very niche area of animal vaccine, what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities, where all they can converge. So they can get into those animal research boards, they can get into those zoos, they can partner with those doctors who are into these things, they can partner with the pet shops. So what could be their opportunities area? So it would vary from each industry. You have to keep yourself aware how the industry trend is moving. Or say, for example, give me an example of the industry you are in, and maybe I can talk about what could be the possibilities that you want to see in the opportunities, because there is no one fixed formula for each industry. So you have to keep an eye open. Say, for example, there are those models which work in the supply chain. That's also one of the building model. There are model where opportunities is B2B, but there are models where B2B would fail. So say, for example, a consumer in a pharma industry, what happens, a consumer is never the direct market to the pharma industry. It always goes via the doctor. Whatever the doctor would prescribe, a patient would buy, right? So it is never direct. So each industry would so in a pharma industry, you need to have a good relationship with these doctors. So that's where they have these market representatives, right? So every industry, startup, every segment has to look into their opportunity in a different manner.
Yeah, I suppose that must have answered his question. So our next question is from Aritra Kumar. He is asking that, ma'am, how can I go for market analysis for an innovative product, and what key point I need to collect from the market?
Arithro, for an innovative product, innovation is a very beautiful and a wonderful topic that you have brought in. So innovation is the buzzword. Innovation is the key to each one of the brilliant ideas. For the innovation, what you can do, the opportunity that you can keep in mind, there's two method that can be done. One, that market insights you can gather from anywhere, and based on the Google research and secondary data research. One of the key things that I would talk to you about here is, as a small startups which work onto the innovation space, any innovative technology or the disruptive technology, there are bigger players, say for example bigger firms, who are looking to partner with those small firms who work on to do these things. Say, for example, a big company may not invest that much to build its own innovation driven unit, but they are willing. If you have an innovation, they would fund you, they would support you to have your innovative or the disruptive technology being done, which if successful, they can use it, right? So a lot of these bigger companies, MNCs, they do that. So as a disruptive or the innovative product company, keep an eye open for these kind of alliances. These could be a good potential, these could be a good opportunity for you, right? So that's my take to the product innovation.
It's, I guess it's a little one question is out of topic, but I guess, ma'am, you could answer it.
Sure.
What are some of the good Indian angel funding networks, and do we have equivalent of soft backing version fund here?
Oh, well, angel network, there are a lot of angel networks that's happening. And trust me, most of them work in a manner that, again, they work or invest in people. Angel networks work in, none of the network, I would say, would work into just the idea. They work in people as well, right? So if I have to invest in something, I would invest in both the idea, if the idea has the potential, and the team, because it's the team which converts that idea to implementation. Even the best of ideas can die if there is not a good team. So any of these angel networks, we have a lot of them available in India. And so all of them, they work in a good network. They look into the founding team. And most of the incubators, they have their own linkages with
Yeah.
these accelerators or the angel investors that we talk to. And based on which area domain they have, they have their choices most of the time. Not everyone invests in each industry. So again, your investor would look into which segment you are, which segment your product is working into. So that's how they look into it, both the idea and the team. So investment is never just to idea, it's to both idea and the team, right?
Yeah. So, ma'am, one final question. What is a success mantra? Someone is asking some a take from you. What do you think is a success mantra?
I could see that in the question. It's from Pankaj sir. I know him very well. Pankaj
Uh,
sir, success mantra is something, you have been knowing it well. For me, success mantra is just one word: persistency. You have to be passionate about what you want to do. You have to be structured and disciplined. Until as we are structured and disciplined and persistent, we would not be successful. A lot of us must have heard that story of that ant which fell, say, 20 times before climbing the mountain. So, don't give up. If I failed, there was an issue in me. Don't play victim. Don't blame others. Don't say foul play. Improve yourself. Improve your idea. Improve your methodology. Improve your marketing skills. Improve your strategic things. Increase your collaboration, because that's where you would succeed. So persistence, discipline, and structured work is very important for success. And definitely to succeed in our business world, networking is also important, because that's how this business world works. So network well.
we have a question. The questioner is asking that he has been doing research and taking insights from Crunchbase
Uh-huh.
and Crunchbase, and he
Yeah, yeah.
got few data where it's not true. So, should I opt out being a paid member of Crunchbase? That's he's confused.
So Crunchbase is one of the very, I would say, a nice database of startup industry, investors, funding, news, events that's happening. Uh, there are times when these databases are not updated on a very regular manner. That happens with any of the things, database product. So nothing is 100% foolproof. Uh, but I could see that there are a lot of services that's available even with the free version of Crunchbase. So Crunchbase is a good tool. I suggest people to use it to keep themselves aware about investors and startup ecosystem. But depending upon your need, you can have a paid version or a free version. That's your choice, and your budget as well. Yeah.
I guess, ma'am, we don't have any more questions. So, one last question of mine,
Sure.
ma'am. What are the go-to database? I mean, what are the database you trust?
Personally, if you have to look into for the business research, you have to, if you have the budget to get a subscription of the paid databases. I personally have been using Capital IQ. Capital IQ is one of the very nice databases. For the industry news insights, you can use Factiva as well. For the financial kind of things, you can use Bloomberg. So these three are, all three have different utilities. For the competitors market insights, Capital IQ; news, Factiva; financial details, Bloomberg. And for the other companies detailed and the industry, get into the financial segment of the company website. They have put their annual reports. They have a lot of industry knowledge, the annual reports, and that for the international firms, the 10K filings. Those, do take a look into it. You would also understand the way the businesses and the companies work. They are a huge, mines of knowledge there.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I guess that was like 1 hour of, a small mini accelerator program. You did this, how to find the right kind of problems, the methodologies, the tools, techniques. So I hope the participants would have gotten clarity, good insights. They would come. How can they reach you, ma'am? Someone?
Yes, so I can be reached very easily on my LinkedIn. I can give you my email ID also. I'm just typing it down, a.prasad@metaconnect.in. I'm typing it in the chat box. That's just give me a second, to everyone, a.prasad@metaconnect.in. That's my email ID.
Yes.
And on LinkedIn also, I can be very easily searched, Aparajita Prasad. And maybe Soumya, you can share my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is not open right now. You can share my
I will be
LinkedIn.
sharing the link.
Aparajita Prasad. Search for me on LinkedIn. So, LinkedIn and email, these are the two quickest and the most effective ways to reach me. And trust me, I would be happy to help and answer any of the queries and any of the supports that I personally or MetaConnect can provide to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome. So lovely talking to you all. Stay focused, keep doing good work. Entrepreneurs are the answers to the evolving and changing world and the economies. So stay focused, keep doing good work, and lovely speaking to you all.